Welcome to Nephi Paints, and in this video I'll be showing you how to make some Demon World bases. Let's crack in. To make these bases, all I've used are my bases, a 2-part epoxy putty. I've gone with Tamiya, and with the putty I've made myself some moulds, and these moulds are skulls and flesh that I'll mix and match together to make the bases. Here's a link to a video how I did the moulds. Before gluing anything to the base, I always dry fit the pieces I want to put down. This just helps me visualize the design of the base I want. Once I'm happy, I glue it down with super glue. This epoxy putty is quite flexible, so if you want it to sit flush to the base, you can just push it down firmly. If any part slightly overhangs, I generally just leave it. If it's a large overhang, I'll just cut it away with a hobby knife. With all the main pieces glued down, you're bound to have some gaps in between. To fill those gaps, I've made up some more epoxy putty, broken it up into little sections and placed it in between the gaps in the rough shape I want it. Using a toothpick, I've just shaped the epoxy putty to blend the two pieces together. If you have proper sculpting tools, this is the time to use them. I don't, so I just go with my trusty old toothpicks. Work and mould the epoxy putty into the bases until you're happy with the result. Once you are, let the epoxy putty dry thoroughly. With the epoxy putty fully dried, I've cleaned the edges of the bases with a hobby knife just to tidy them up a little. Then I've given them 2 thin coats of brush on primer from the Amyu painter. When the undercoat is dried, I've gone over to Bugmans Glow from Citadel and I've applied this to the entire base with 2 thin coats. With the Bugmans Glow completely dried, I've added some white scar from Citadel to the paint. This is an 80-20 mix of Bugmans Glow and white scar, and I've dry brushed this over the entire base. The next step was a 60-40 mix of Bugmans Glow and white scar. And the third step was a 50-50 mix of Bugmans Glow and white scar. After the dry brushing step, I've given the base a wash with Reikland Flesh Shade from Citadel. I've mixed a little water into the paint just to thin it down a little bit, as the colour was a bit dark for my liking. And I've applied this to the entire base. With the Reikland Flesh Shade dried, now going back to dry brushing. This is the Bugmans Glow and white scar again. The first mix is the 50-50 mix. This next dry brush is a 40-60 mix. The last dry brush is a 30-70 mix Bugmans to white scar. With the flesh done, now it's time to move on to the bones. I've gone with Tallarn Sand from Citadel. I've mixed this with a little water and painted all the bones with this colour. Trying to avoid the flesh as much as possible. If you do happen to get it on the flesh, just go back with the flesh colour and touch it up. After applying the Tallarn Sand to the bone, I've given them a coat of Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. This is applied straight from the pot. With the Agrax Earthshade completely dry, I've gone back to the Tallarn Sand from Citadel, and I've given all the bone a dry brush with this colour. The next dry brush was a 70-30 mix of Tallarn Sand and White Scar from Citadel. This dry brush is a 50-50 Tallarn Sand and White Scar. This last dry brush for the bone is a 30-70 mix Tallarn Sand to White Scar. The next step is to paint the veins on the skin. This is done with Alien Purple from the Army Painter. This is straight from the pot, and I've given all the veins a base coat with this colour. This next coat is a 70-30 mix of Alien Purple and White Scar. I've applied this to the veins, leaving some of the base Alien Purple underneath visible. This will just brighten up the veins a little bit and give them a bit more definition. This last highlight is a 50-50 mix of the Alien Purple and White Scar, and this is applied to even less of the veins than before. Now it's time to apply the blood to the bases, and this is done with X27 Clear Red from Tamiya. This is straight from the pot. I've applied this between all the bones on the bases, and any cuts and wounds on the bases I've also applied it to. Around all the open wounds of the flesh, I've applied purple tone from the Army Painter. I've gone in with different shades of the purple tone, so some with more water than others. This is to represent the bruising and trauma the skin has suffered. The next step is painting all the rims of the bases with Abaddon Black from Citadel. This is done with 2 thin coats. The final stage of painting is to apply Ard Coat from Citadel to all the flesh areas of the base, trying to avoid the bone. So this goes on the blood, flesh, veins. If you do happen to get it on the bone, it'll be fine, not a big deal, but just try not to coat the bone in this colour. Once the Ard Coat dries, the bases will be ready. And here they are, ready to be mounted with the model. Thanks for watching Nephew Paints. If you liked the video, please click the sub button or leave me a like. If there's anything you'd like to see in a future video, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch ya!